Our scripture reading this morning is from the book of Genesis, chapter 3, verses 1 through 7. The snake, was the most intelligent of all the wild animals that the good Lord had made. He said to the woman, "Did God really say that you shouldn't eat from any tree in the garden?" The woman said to the snake, "We may eat the fruit of the garden's trees, but not the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden. God said, 'Don't eat from it, don't touch it, or you will die.'" The snake said to the woman, "You won't die. God knows that. On the day you eat from it, you will see clearly, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." The woman saw that the tree was beautiful, with delicious fruit, and that the tree would provide wisdom. So she took some of its fruit, and she ate it, and also gave some to her husband, who was with her. And he ate it. Then they both saw clearly and knew that they were naked. So they sewed fig leaves together and made garments for themselves. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God.
Would you join me in prayer? May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable to you, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So just a few days ago, we had Amazon Prime Day. Anybody buy anything on Amazon Prime? Yeah, got big hands up everywhere. I bought 2 new pairs of shoes on Amazon Prime. People are over here going, "You didn't need 2 new pairs of shoes, Jim." In fact, sometimes Kisa makes fun of me because I have a lot of pairs of shoes. So Amazon Prime Day, I'm glad to see. First, by the way, in the 8:30 service, there were just a few hands that went up. Probably close to half of y'all's went up, and the other half were, well, y'all just don't want to join in. And so I know that probably a good 75% bought something because we set a new record. 375 million items were sold in 2 days on Amazon Prime, just in this country. That's 12.7 billion with a B dollars. Yep, I gave mine probably $150 toward it. $12.7 billion. We are absolutely a society of over-consumers. And today, in our sermon series called Summer Baggage, we have tagged another bag. We had worry, we have sharp tongue, and now we have tagged with overconsumption. Think about our television shows. What's that? Hoarders, where somebody has just got so much stuff in their house that there's just a little trail to go through between rooms. We possibly even know somebody like that. We possibly are somebody like that. I look at social media. How many of us consume too much social media? You don't have to raise your hands. I know. I'm raising mine because you'll find out most of the fingers are pointed at me today. Kisa gives me a hard time about how many pairs of shoes I have. I have at least 27 pairs of shoes. For a guy, that's a ton of shoes. For a lady, and I don't mean to be sexist, but for a lady, that's probably not very many. How many of y'all have more than 27 pairs of shoes? Yeah, I'm seeing lots of hands going up, but they're only going up about this high. I see one brother trying to raise his sister's hand over here. Do y'all remember Imelda Marcos? Remember that story? She had, thousands of pairs of shoes. We are absolutely a society of over-consumers. We thrive on having too much. For some, it's food. For others, it's alcohol or drugs. Perhaps it's self-doubt, worry, self-pity. It doesn't have to be a tangible item. We fill our lives with this ambition. Perhaps we're searching for love, or we're just like being busy. And we think that just one more whatever, you fill in the blank, is going to bring us happiness. One more pair of tennis shoes. Those bright highlighter yellow ones that I like. One more antique car. One more skein of yarn. One more square of fabric. Yeah, I know you crafters. I know y'all. One more is going to bring my happiness. That's all it's going to, just one more. You see, this is selfish behavior. This is how we come to rely on ourselves and on society instead of relying on God. And that's where Eve and Adam went wrong that day. You see, they were told that they could eat of anything in the garden except that one. Now, you and I are not in the garden today. Eve and Adam are not sitting in the sanctuary of St. Barnabas today. But human nature hasn't changed. How many of us, when we are told we can have anything we want except for this, how many of us want this? Right? Oh, way too many of y'all are agreeing with me today. Way too many. See, earlier in Genesis, we get to see, first chapter of Genesis, we get to see the creation. We get to see God has made light. And it was good. And then God formed the seas and saw that they were good, and then the land, and then the animals, and then us. And each time, God saw what He had made and saw that it was good. You and me, we were good. We were living in a perfect utopia. But we wanted more. We wanted that which we could not have. We were selfish. And we broke the covenant with God to get it. Disobeying God and the desire for that unobtainable is what has doomed humans to sin. Now, I'll be the first to tell you, I do not like this sermon series, and I do not like today's story. It is walking all over me, stepping on both toes, both feet, because not a one of us here wants to know that we are called to obey or there will be consequences. We don't want to know that. We want to go through our lives thinking that we're relying on ourselves. We want to go through our lives thinking that we, can rely on God when it's convenient. And I'm not pointing the fingers at anybody else in here. Y'all get to come along for the ride, but it's all about me today. This story hits way too close to home. Yep, I have too much stuff. I suspect some of y'all might too. But I also take on too much, and I take on too much, I call it busyness. And what I find is that sometimes I am so busy doing the stuff that I'm committed to that I just don't have time for resting. Or as Alyssa mentioned last week, taking a pause. And during that pause time, to just be. To just sit and be with God. Now, today in our text, we hear of the snake who approaches Eve and has this seemingly innocent question. Did God really say that? And I will tell you that that question was anything but innocent. That question was deceiving. That question was divisive. That question was to cause Eve to question whether or not God had authority or not. Did he really say that? They eat of the fruit, and their eyes are opened. And now, like God, they can tell what is evil and what is right. They know right from wrong. Last week we watched Kisa pour toothpaste out in her time with the children. And we know that once this has come out, we can't put it back in. Just like that toothpaste. And so we are doomed to an entire life of sin. We are predestined to it, if you will. Some of the translations, it's not a snake, it's a serpent. I'm not sure there's a lot of difference, but in my brain I envision that the serpent actually had little legs like a lizard would. And the punishment for the serpent is that for the rest of his days, he crawls around on his belly. Thus the translation of snake. And the punishment for us, for disobeying God, for breaking the covenant, is sin. And in fact, it takes all the way until the arrival of Jesus Christ to defeat death for us, to take on our sin. The serpent has distracted Eve and Adam. Don't forget, Adam was there too. That's a key point. Sometimes we think of Eve being the one that was deceived and then her deceiving Adam in innocence. Adam was there too. But the serpent, the snake, has deceived us. It's commonly thought of by theologians that the serpent represents evil. Evil deceives us and continues to distract us even today. I want to read to you what Paul wrote to this church in Corinth. This is from 2 Corinthians 11. He says, I'm deeply concerned about you with the same concern that God has. As your father, I promised you in marriage to one husband. I promised to present you as an innocent virgin to Christ himself. But I'm afraid that your minds might be seduced in the same way as the snake deceived Eve with his devious tricks. You might be unable to focus completely on a genuine and innocent commitment to Christ. Our distractions lead us away from what Christ calls us to do, from what God calls us to do. Too many outside forces are working against us, trying to keep us from being the hands and feet of Christ here in this place. Perhaps you've had an argument over politics. Perhaps you've listened to the arguments about which sinners are lovable and which ones aren't. You see, all this stuff is just junk. It's just junk that we need to pack away. Maybe put in one of those suitcases that's destined for that lost suitcase place in Alabama that we talked about last week. Has anybody gone to their website and looked at some of the stuff? You know, you can buy a $20,000 diamond necklace on their website. I'm thinking to myself, who in the world packs a $20,000 diamond necklace in their checked luggage and then, doesn't throw a hissy fit when it disappears? But it's all just junk. It's all junk that we don't need. It's all junk that we just need to figure out a way to send away. So this week, I want to challenge each and every one of you. I want to challenge you to find something in your life that you are over-consuming. And I want you to take a portion of that and figure out how to get rid of it. Now, I am a clothes horse. I'll tell you right off the bat, I've got way too many clothes. I bet there's 20 sports coats hanging in my closet right now. This week, I'm going to commit to taking 2 foot of clothing out of my closet. And I'm going to donate it to someone else or someplace else that can use it. I'm going to take one of my overconsumptions and I'm going to turn it into good for somebody else. And so I challenge you to do something like that. Maybe, just maybe, you spend too much time on social media. Can you give up 30 minutes of social media? And maybe spend that 30 minutes that you would have been surfing Facebook or Instagram and spend it in the Bible, getting closer to God. Maybe your indulgence is the Chinese buffet. Maybe instead of 5 plates through the buffet line, you can only do 3. Or maybe instead of 3, you can only do 2. I'm not asking you to give up anything. I'm not asking you to take anything completely out of your life. But just trim a little away. And try to figure out how to make that benefit someone else in the kingdom. And I want to hear about it. Jim at sbumc.org, I want to hear about it. I want to see if we can, as a church, cut something, trim something that we overindulge in. Maybe you hit Starbucks twice a day. Maybe you could only hit Starbucks once a day. And with that extra $6.50, you might bless someone on the street corner. Whatever that looks like for you, because it's going to be different for everyone. I know where I'm taking 2 foot of closet. Now, don't feel bad. I've got probably 15, 18 feet of closet space. I'm only taking 2 feet out. I'm trimming. I'm not making a major sacrifice here. Just a little. It's a mild sacrifice. But I want to encourage each of you, because when we figure out how to rid ourselves of our selfish ways, well, perhaps we can figure out how to fill those empty spaces now with the love of God or with the love of our neighbor. Maybe we can get back to being that undistracted light of Christ that we are called to be, where we show the world how much they are loved and how much they are worthy and how much we are all children of God. Join me in prayer. God of all grace and glory, we are so blessed to be your children today. We are blessed for all that you provide us, and we apologize for all of our selfish ways. God, we ask that you open our eyes and open our minds this week, that we might find a place where we can benefit others. We might find a place to be a little less selfish and a little more loving. We see and have seen the example that your Son came and the sacrifices that he went through, and how he takes our sin upon himself, how he redeems us. Help us to live as redeemed children of Christ. We ask all of this in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.